We are tapped in and turned on to life. This is about creating, sustaining, reclaiming, redesigning the authentic and genuine you. Big buzzwords for me, authentic and genuine, anchoring words for me, authentic and genuine. Welcome aboard, you guys. It's Tuesday and we are live. Hello to the Pacific Northwest and hello to my Canadians, my Mexicanas, my UKs. I have absolutely loved talking with you and getting your messages. And thank you so much for tuning in and telling me your desires and what you want to learn and what you want to hear about. Before we jump in, of course, we're going to do the awareness segment, and it is an inside job. We're going to do that. And I wanted to also remind you how to keep in touch with me and my guests, getting a copy of the radio show. You just go to claritywithsue.com. We are evolving into a new name called tunedin.com. But you can find it at claritywithsue.com. And I know that was really confusing, but just hold on and bear with me here. Go to claritywithsue.com, sign up for the newsletter. It's little love bumps. I don't spam you. I truly want to offer and give you and desire to give you some really good, juicy tools. And then if you are listening to us in the podcast world, thank you very much. Please 5-star rating. If you are watching us in YouTube live, whether it's live or recorded, please, I want to hear your comments. I really, really love hearing your comments. Of course, if they're positive, but I also, be loving and constructive, not critical. If it's critical, it's just not as valuable. So really own that confidence within yourself and let me know what you really want to hear about and what's going on. Before we get to the segment, I want to remind all of you, we have the annual Alternative Talk 1150 survey going on. And that will be going on till the 23rd. So it's about 4 weeks. I think we're in the second or third week. I think it's the third week. So go to www.1150kknw and click on the 2023 survey. It's a cute little pink icon. Of course, I want you to vote for Clarity with Sue and let us know what you're wanting to hear, what we are doing well, what we need to hone in on. We want to hear from you. Your voice does make a difference. And not only that, you are going to enter yourself in a drawing to go on a Victoria Clipper for two tickets. And then I think it's a $100 gift certificate to Famous Dave's restaurant. So please join us in Alternative Talk 1150 and do the listenership. Your voice matters. We really want to hear from you. So thank you very much for doing that. And I hope you win. So we are on to the awareness segment. It's an inside job. Today, it's going to be short and brief. And the awareness practice for us today is, where are or how am I showing up and what are my unmet needs? Now I'm going to tap into this just a little bit. Today's the unmet needs. So what's going on with that? What am I complaining about? Having the awareness of what am I complaining about? Really look at that and see, is it because my mets aren't being met? My needs aren't being met. And also sarcasm plays a huge role in your needs not being met. There is a difference between sarcasm and, in my opinion, I don't like a lot of sarcasm. It's teasing, especially when it's not nice. That sarcasm of making the other person feel like they're doing something wrong because you have not effectively communicated your needs. So that's the awareness practice today. It is an inside job. Really start looking at your life and looking at where you're sarcastic and how are you languaging being sarcastic? Is it coming from a place of just being silly and joyful? There's a huge difference, right? Or is it my needs aren't being met and I'm using sarcasm to shine a light on that and making the other person feel responsible, guilty, or sticky. Again, my language, it's the stickiness, right? And also, what am I complaining about? What am I complaining about in my life? My needs are not getting met. That's a really good superpower tip and tool for today's It's an Inside Job awareness segment. All right, you guys, I am so excited. I'm excited every time I get to jump on the radio show with you guys. And today, you know what? I met this young lady, and before we got on live radio, thank God Chantal knew, because I couldn't remember how long it's been. It's been 6 years since we first met. And I'm so excited because I'm going to do the formal introduction and then we'll get into the story. Okay. Chantal Story is a psychic medium, a professional certified astrologist, a trauma-informed grief support counselor, and law of attraction master coach. Yes. Her mission is to help heart-centered people cultivate and strengthen their intuition, to trust and use it every day so they can live their most aligned and soul-led, purposeful life. Intuition is the compass of the soul. Totally agree. And she teaches that your soul always knows the way. Every person is born with a soul mission. The more you learn to trust your intuition and the flow with energy that life presents, the more you uncover your soul's mission. And life opens up to the most magical ways for opportunities, growth, and abundance.
Abundance. Yes! Who doesn't want that, right?
The abundance, baby.
Yes.
Okay, 6 years.
6 years ago. I was recounting it in a social media post this morning. And it just, this is what serendipity is. Also, this is supposed to be one of the most luckiest days of the year today. So I want to encourage anyone who it feels appropriate for you to go buy a lottery ticket, use this energy for your highest and best. We call Jupiter the expansion planet is coming to sit with the exact same degree as the sun. Like, you can't make this stuff up that it happened today. And we met 6 years ago. The seed was planted back then at a psychic fair, one of my first ever psychic fairs. And Sue was actually sent in to recon me to see how well I was doing by the runner of the fair, the organizer, to see how well it was doing. And it was such a wild experience because they put me in the back corner. It was raining so hard. Do you remember that? It was like ice and snow and rain. And I was sitting under my tent and I'm reading tarot cards and turning and burning. And I remember being so exhilarated that I couldn't get enough. It was a 2-day fair. And I'm like, I need to do more of this. And it was, yeah. And that was when the seed was planted 6 years ago. Amazing.
It's coming home, sister. It is coming home. With the Reiki training, the evidential mediumship training, the intuition, the law of attraction, the 111, whatever the energy training certificates that I've got, the heart math, all that. For me, it was such a self-awareness of coming home. Yes. Coming home to me, to Sue, to my heart,
Literally.
I think,
and then literally. The serendipity of running across my intuition post at the exact moment that you were looking for someone to talk about it. You can't make this stuff up. I always say luck is opportunity meeting preparedness. And that exactly what this was, is that I was just like, here it is. Let's talk about intuition. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly the perfect time.
Right. And the listener, you have to be you have to be in the receiving going, oh, absolutely. There's the answer to my question.
That's right.
Because I had just been wanting to talk to somebody about trauma and staying tapped in and what that all looks like. And then of course, with your niche of helping, us, intuitives and us in the field, staying tapped in and not, and understanding that it's, what did you call it before we got on the show? When there is stuff happening in 3D and you kind of
spiritual bypass.
That's it. You see me on the video. I'm bypassing.
It's like, charades. Let's see.
Yeah, charades.
It drives me absolutely bonkers, I think, because when I understood, so number one, my mediumship gifts came back in again, after I had my last child. And then I started to notice that I was helping a lot of people through grief, because of course, if you're channeling their loved ones that have crossed over into spirit, there's a lot of tears and sadness. And I had a natural affinity to just step into it, lean into it. And it didn't scare me. I like talking about death and grief. And so I went for my grief counseling certification, and then I went for my trauma informed certification. So that kind of led me to understand that unmet needs, which you just talked about in your opening segment, is actually like an inner child wanting to become whole, but not knowing how. Right. And so our intuition, we can't hear it sometimes because our grief, our traumas are so loud that we can misunderstand them. And then we don't listen to our intuition because it feels too scary to listen to ourselves, because we've been trained away from that. right? We've been trained to suppress our emotions and not be angry. Don't say no. For goodness sake, don't say no. But that's actually a major part of your development at the age of 2, when you're learning boundaries and learning how to put up your boundaries, and you're trained away from that. So your soul speaks to you through emotion. And if you're not able to listen to the emotions and you're suppressing it, well, then you're also suppressing your soul, right?
Oh, so much so. And when you're in a trauma state, when your body, your mind, everything's in a trauma state, and I know this to be true from my education, and also how I teach, is I certainly didn't want, nor do I want, a Rubik's Cube of personal development and stuff I'm going to have to try and unpack and figure out, because I'm already struggling. I don't need another Rubik's Cube. I want real life, real time, practical tools that I can immediately tap in and just calm myself. And I talk about this so much on the radio show. It's breath, going to the heart and just breathing and getting yourself calm. But then within that regulation and then the trauma, you've got these chemical releases that are happening that you're addicted to. So it's like this double-edged sword. When you go into that trauma, you're like, oh, that doesn't feel good. And then you've got to trust where the emotions are going or not going. Right?
That's exactly right. And I think that safety first, they always sort of say safety first. And that's the same thing. Like I've seen a lot of mediums even channeling like during big demonstrations, and the person is crying and crying, and they're just going on about what happened and how the person died and the person. And I'm like, hold the phone. Let's just stop for a moment and let's help this poor person breathe and find safety in this. It's almost like for show, when the medium becomes like that. And
Right.
it
Yeah.
really irritates me, because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, are we actually doing this as an ambassador to spirit and helping healing, or are we doing this for our ego? So I always like to stop the person. Let's take a deep breath. Let's breathe together. And a really calming breath to engage the vagus nerve, which for fancy talk for coming into safety is 4 in, 7 out. So that 4-7 count is so great to just engage that safety. And I think when I started to see putting these tools into action when clients are having a hard time, it started to build a deeper connection, which they call contingency in psychology, where we have this deeper connection now that then allows deeper healing to happen. Right. And I think a lot of therapists, and I love you should have a mental dream team. Everyone should have a mental dream team, a therapist, a counselor, and a healer that's trauma informed, because we're speaking to the soul and also bringing in that psychology, bringing in that safety, but then helping the soul to express. So it's important to have all of them on your team, and I would love to see those two, merge. And I think we're seeing a lot of that happen in psychology now, with Gabor Mate talking about, the soul and this capital
Love
S for
him.
self,
Yes.
right? And then even in IFS, that gentleman who does IFS, I can't remember his name, but he talks about the capital S self as one of the, parts of self that we, talk about. And it's just finally psychology and science is catching up with the psychics and the mediums and the healers of the world, right?
The healers of the world. I know
Finally.
when I started doing this 15 years ago, and source told, and
Yes.
I'm going to go on this whole conversation about source, and just bear with me here, because it's about leaning in and trusting source, trusting. Audience know this. If it's purple chopsticks and that's what brings you home, then believe in the purple chopsticks. I call it source, Gus. It's God's source,
Creator.
spirit,
Yeah.
creator,
Spirit.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Leaning into that faith and trust that everything's going to work out for me, even though you can't see your foot in front of you. And I talk about this because it's been like that. It's reinvent and reinvent, reclaim, reinvent so much for me. And I talk about this because it is that reinvention, and it's that resilience and faith of, okay, somehow I've created this. I'm taking my power. I'm going to own wherever I am in this. And then I'm going to get intentional, the law of attraction. I'm really going to get intentional and co-create my life. And as I co-create my life, I'm being intentional. I'm taking my power back, instead of this is happening to me, right? It's the language, it's happening for me. Again, it's
right.
It's how we have to kind of play with our inside under the hood kind of thing. For the radio world, I'm pointing to my head going, it's an inside job, and it's an inside job for my heart too. for YouTubers, you get it. But let's go back to leaning into that faith. And I kind of want to back up a little bit, because if we are in a trauma state, majority of us are, I think there's a percentage out there that states that we are, because we're in a trauma environment, and we're talking little tiny nicks, the small T traumas. I'm talking small T traumas. I leave it, the big T traumas, up to the professionals and all of that. I'm talking to the day-to-day stuff.
That's right.
You know, somebody ran a red light in front of you, the boss chipped at you, the in-laws chipped at you, something with the kids happened, right? It's those little tiny nicks, and you're in this kind of fight or flight already, right?
That's right.
So how can we breathe? First, it's that awareness. Oh, I am in that fight or flight, right? Because again, it's that I'm not aware.
That's right. So I'm going to bring it back again to psychology, in that
Okay.
we are naturally inherently brought into this world, and we self-regulate. We can't self-regulate as babies, all right? Our parents are help us to self-regulate with soothing and our crying and all that. But as we get older, we learn how to self-regulate, and some trauma patterns help us sometimes to self-regulate. And then we have we co-regulate with other people. We're co-creating with the universe. That's lovely. And we know, yes, we are in charge of our world, and our inner state reflects in our outer state, but we are all going to become dysregulated in life. That is part of our growth and evolution as a spirit. We come to earth as a training ground to have dysregulation, because we learn through that evolution of our soul, we learn through dysregulation. So the tools then that help you to come back into self-regulation. So sometimes those tools, breathing, always, especially when
it's free, brothers and sisters. Come on.
That's right. Yes. You come in on an inhale and you leave on an exhale, and what you do in between is up to you, right? So yes, that deep, 4-7 breath, super helpful. Also, sometimes, and depending on your design as well, sometimes that's also co-regulating with someone else that helps you to come back into stability. So co-regulating means, like, when you're talking to a friend, like when I got COVID for the first time, and I was talking to, I like to do this when I'm dysregulated, as I'll talk to friends, and you'll notice in your friend group, you'll have the friend that's the champion, right? Yes, that's right. You should do that. That person that gave you COVID, too bad for them. And oh my God, right? And then and I have this in my spiritual community more so, is this, so why do you think you drew in this experience? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to talk about that right now.
I'm going to give you the bird in a hot second.
Really, right? You're like, why do you think this is happening? Right. And then you can find the friends that are kind of the hybrid of the two, right? That just go, God, this sucks. Right? Yeah. Really. And I just want all the listeners and all the YouTubers to listen and know, this is like the best kind of friend to have, is someone that acknowledges your pain, because there's nothing worse than saying, oh, it's going to get better. You're fine. You're fine. Like, it drives me crazy when my husband say that to my kids. And I'm like, how do you know they're fine? When I punch you in the face and see if you're fine, right? I'll just tell you you're fine and you feel bad. Right. And it's just like, I get a little excited about things.
Soapbox, babe. I'm with you on that. Yeah, totally.
And I'm just like, so that friend that kind of goes, man, that sucks. I'm so sorry you're going through that. That's awful.
But not enabling. That's important.
That's right.
Right.
But it's like coming into that space where I can feel for you. I have empathy and compassion. There's actually no such thing as compassion fatigue. There's empathy fatigue, because empathy puts you in their socks, in their shoes. You feel them, right? As an empath, empaths listening, right? You are taking their emotion in. Compassion is you're feeling for them over here. Right? You're not actually sitting in their shoes and feeling everything for them and holding everything for them. That doesn't get anybody anything. No. So we sit in compassion with each other, and then we help us to come back into regulation, right? I'm so sorry you're going through that, Sue. That really is awful. How are you feeling? Because we're so busy talking about the experience, we never actually come back into the seat of the soul. How are you feeling? And when you actually just feel the feelings and allow yourself to be with the feelings in co-regulation, or maybe that's introspection in your journal, and then bringing light to that and understanding that it's okay for me to feel like this.
That right there is really important. And I want the audience to make sure that we caught that. It is okay to have the conversation around what my feelings are, what is not, and what I know that I teach is that refractory period, getting it out of your nervous system, getting it out of your body, and to regulate, get it, I call it the sticky stuff just for language, right?
That's right.
Get it off of you, get it out of you. Do not let it stick to you. That's the important part. If it sticks to you, then it becomes a habituation. Then it becomes part
Or
of your
your
character,
identity.
your
Yeah.
identity.
You don't
10
want
years
that.
ago, 10 minutes, not 10 minutes, but well, it could have been, but 10 years ago, you're still holding on to something that happened to you, and that's become your identity. Well, that happened to me, so that's how I'm going to show up.
And it becomes
Right.
your experience and defines you. And it
Yes.
doesn't have to. It's just
That's
something that
it.
happened
Yes.
to you. Right. So
Yes.
acknowledging, I think that's one of the things I find with my clients. We do this process where they name their feelings. And I actually have an emotion wheel up and they use the emotion wheel. And sometimes that's enough. I'm disgusted, I'm hurt, I feel abandoned. And I said, okay, how do you feel after you've named all those feelings? And they're like, acknowledged. I feel heard. For the first time in my life, I feel heard. I heard a
Yes.
client say that the other day, and it brought tears to my eyes
Oh,
because what if we could all do this for our children? What if we could all do this for our friends? Like, how are you feeling in this moment? And it's interesting because after I came into all of this soul work and this development, my friends all know now. I'll ask, how are you feeling? And they're like, oh, Sheetal. But I'm like, no, I want you to name it. How are you feeling? Like, I even just sent my best friend a word, the emotion wheel last like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, this is really helpful for your journaling. And she's like, thank you. So, as we elevate and we educate ourselves, we then, shine that light and help others around us. And this is how we change the planet, right? Right here. Love it.
yes. I'm taking a nice, big, fat, deep breath, and I am really, really grateful, really thankful, not only for yourself, but us to be able to have this platform and this conversation. And of course, it's so darn come on, serendipitous and come on. And
The
the
luckiest day of the
luckiest, come
year.
on, the
Yes.
luckiest day of the year.
Yes. Yes. I love
No
this. Thank you
wonder
so much.
it just feels so good. It just feels so good.
Yes.
You have to help me remember. I pulled a card for us, and I wanted to, because I love pulling card. I've got a few different decks, and I pull a card and I say, all right, Spirit, what do we need? What deck are we going from? And then I usually wait till the end to see how the serendipitous and how it all aligns. And I normally I don't read it beforehand, but something of course told me to, and it almost brought me to tears. So I'm really excited to share it with you. So we'll do that towards the end.
Okay. And funny that you mentioned cards. That's another great tool to help people come into regulation and bring that power back to them. I actually encourage all of my clients, all my I teach Intuition 101. And that's one of the things I get them to do is pull a card for themselves in the morning or set an intention for themselves, journal it, and see how it then plays out for the rest of the day. Right?
Yes.
Because it gives you back some sort of semblance of control in your life. But
That's
really,
you taking your power back, right?
That's right. But really, it's law of attraction working, because what you think, it comes about, right?
Yes.
So if you're setting your intention that I'm going to have a magical day, or I'm going to have a day full of grace and ease, and then you just start to see how the world starts to organize, with that. It's so magical. And I always like to say to especially any skeptics that are listening, is that you're going to go from point A to point B. So I always use I'm going to drive from Edmonton to Vancouver, for those of you in the US that don't understand what that is.
Yeah.
Seattle to Portland. Let's use Seattle to Portland. You're going to drive there, and you can drive there thinking this is a crap drive, and look at all these mountains and look at all these ditches. Or you can look and go, look at the ocean and look at this magic that surrounds us. And I think there's some of us that were taught in early years that that's whimsical thinking, that's not practical, that's dreamer state. Yeah, right. But it's actually understanding that beauty surrounds us, gratitude surrounds us. And gratitude's another practice to come back into regulation. But sometimes you're not at that level yet, in your energy.
I don't want to be thankful that my mom just died, or
Yes, that's awful. And that is an awful thing to happen. But yes, gratitude is when you're at a state where you can be thankful, and you start to that car accident could have killed me, it totaled my car and I needed a new car, thank you,
right,
like you can start to see little things, then you're in a good place.
Oh, that is so funny that you of course you bring that up, but there has been situations about my car and some other thing, which it's beautiful and it's groovy. But just really quick before we go to a radio commercial break. And for those of you who want to join us on YouTube, just go to YouTube and type in 11:50 a.m. and we're going to be still noodle over there. you know, things like that, serendipitous things. If I'm thinking about my car and, oh, I should probably swap it out. And then all of a sudden they're like moments and I could have been involved in that accident. And I'm like, whoa, 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 universe. I didn't mean to get into an accident. Whoa.
But did you? But did
No.
you?
I want this in grace and ease. And part of
Yes.
my training when I'm talking about intuition, I said, wait. I'm good. I don't want any more grizzly bears. I want
Yes.
butterflies.
Yes.
And with that contract universe, with that equilibrium or that conversation, I want butterflies. So that means I will be tapped in, calm state, so I can hear the messages, right? So with that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Benny's going to take us out. And for those of you on YouTube, we're going to keep noodling over there and we're going to keep talking about intuition and bears and grizzly bear. No, wait, bears and butterflies.
Butterflies. Love it.
All right.
Yes.
All clear, ladies.
Thank you. And YouTube, sorry, I'm blowing my nose. But yes, that is. And I would rather have this in grace and ease. No more grizzly bears, please.
That's right. That's one of the intentions. So it's like one of the first pieces of homework I give my clients. And I said, be careful with what you intend because it will come to pass. And I had an intention once where I want to be of service. I got 911 calls that day from family, from clients. I was so much of service to that I will never use that
word again. Yes.
Again.
Yes.
Right? I want grace and ease and magic and joy and happiness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Service and productivity. Oh, you ask for productivity, you're going to get productivity with lots of chores and things to do.
I want butterflies.
You ask. Yes.
I want abundant freedom, how I design it. Yes.
Abundance. And again, what kind of abundance do you want, right?
Yes. Defining that.
Yes.
Exactly. Oh gosh, I know this to be so true too, with the law of attraction and then going into really being intentional, right? And setting up, whether it's setting up the day, the conversation, like teaching, like you're doing with Intuition 101 and all that. Me too. I've done that. Love it. And also the practice of teaching the clients and even reminding myself, it's a practice, right? It's a practice that you put in place before shiitake hits the fan. Mm-hmm. And I say that so much. And people are like, well, what do you do? What do you do? And I'm like, well, I've already practiced the practice. I've got something in place. Being intentional, like before the radio show, before any conversation, I set the intention for us to hear correct or hear what we need to hear to communicate effectively, all of these things. So I know everything is as it should be, and it will be totally fine because we have our back, we have our backs. We have our backs.
That's right. And I think one of the things that, and I definitely want to talk about when we come back off break as well, is that everything is divinely timed and divinely perfect. Even the crappy stuff that happens to you.
Yes.
It's all like, and that's why I love astrology, is because it starts to show us how we're being carved out to then learn these life lessons and then come back to ourselves, come back to our soul and use these tools that, like anything, you fall off the wagon, right? You go to the gym, you're doing great. And then you go on holiday, you fall off the wagon, you get back on.
Yes.
Right? So intuition is that kind of tool. It's always sitting there, always in the background. And you can pull it in even more in times that you need it, or you can always have it as a practice that's running in the background. I mean, it's up to you, but it's never gone from your sight, right?
No, right. And I think it's an important conversation too, to have, again, going back to that trusting coming out of, and I can't tell you how many people have come to me with, how do I trust myself? I've made all those contrast choices, bad choices, use the adjective to describe. I've made all these poor choices, bad choices. Again, it's just an adjective to describe, audience.
Right.
It's a contrast, right? It's just to show you, again, law of attraction, what you want and what you don't want. There's no emotional charge behind that. But where I was going with that is, how do I trust? How do I trust my choices again after so much has happened?
Well, and I always like to take one layer deeper, is that you stop trusting yourself when your family said not to trust yourself, to trust us instead, right? No, you don't want to do that for a career.
I've got to bring you ladies in.
Okay. Thank you.
Stand by.
radio world. If you missed us on YouTube, we started going deep again. I mean, I can totally, it's this hour is going to fly by. It is absolutely going to fly by. So we were talking, there's a few things that we were talking about on the commercial break. So if you want to hear the whole show, you should probably go back and do that. You can go to claritywithsue.com and get the newsletter, or of course, find us on YouTube and just type in 1150 a.m. We were talking about not trusting ourselves after making so many poor choices. Again, audience, adjective to describe. I say poor choices, bad choices, because I say that as an adjective to describe because there's no emotional charge. I've trained my body and my nervous system to have that balance and that equilibrium. That's why I use that type of language. It's just a contrast. It's just showing me what I want and what I don't want. That's it. So we were talking about that, and how do we trust? How do we lean into trusting ourselves again? And you were saying, Sheetal.
Well, it goes a little deeper because you're taught at an early age not to trust yourself, right?
Yep.
Trust your parents and what they know is better for you. Don't take that up in university, or don't go
Or the coach or
career.
the
Yeah. Do what I tell you to do, not what you think you should be doing. And so we learn at an early age not to trust ourselves. And then when we find our natural brain's our habit or mechanism is that we must be in control of our world. Otherwise, we then spiral. Right. So when something happens to us that is not favorable, right, and you called it clarity through contrast, right, or bad things that happen to good people, you hear that a lot out in the world. We then blame ourselves. We look for a connection. Why did this happen? Right. Our brain is searching for the why. And really nothing good lives in the why. You're not actually going to find out. We don't know why bad things happen to good people. We don't know why people commit suicide and hard things happen. But what we do know is what this now can do what can we do now with this, right? So opportunity. What's the opportunity? So, instead of everything happens for a reason, which drives me crazy, everything happens for an opportunity, because opportunity takes your power back, right? Versus reason is looking for blame, shame, and something that's happening in the past that you cannot make sense of. So we're always looking for that correlation. And the first thing that we like to blame is ourselves. I shouldn't have trusted that person. I shouldn't have done that. When you should yourself, you are shoulding yourself, shiitake shoulding all over.
I know. I always say, I love to use, I say, and in my teaching, it's, I just shoulda, coulda, woulda all over myself.
Oh, and it's awful. It brings you down a shame spiral of blame, shame, and that there's no winner in that game. No. There's no winner. Right? You lose every time. And that's us again trying to take control, versus the clarity through contrast piece is like, okay, now I know that I attract these type of people into my life. Why? What is this about? Curiosity diffuses judgment, right? So
can I share something with you?
Yes,
I know what you're saying.
Yes.
So this was a download years ago on the radio show when I was doing a reading or something. And it's the CCs in life, compassionate curiosity for self and others, right? Isn't that the juiciest? Oh,
that is a tool of massive healing. Compassionate curiosity. If you bring compassionate curiosity with you in all of your darkest moments, you will find light faster and come back into self-regulation than someone who does not have that tool. Right? Because that's your soul. That's the universe. It's compassionate curiosity. It's love incarnate. So you came here to evolve your spirit. So this is happening for you for some sort of evolution. So if you keep attracting
for you, audience, did you hear that? For you.
For you, exactly.
Not to you. Take your power back. You hear society and media and everybody, where's my power? I don't have power. I need to take your power back. Take your power back. This is what we're talking about. It's you with that ownership, not enabling, not shaming, not all that sticky stuff that you hear me talk about. It's you, compassionate curiosity, getting really curious, having compassion, that softness. It's the butterflies. Have that compassion for yourself and other, not empathy, not leaning into and taking on somebody else's emotions or feelings, right?
That's right.
It's really just standing with it, holding space for yourself, right? Go ahead.
And think of that person that's feeling unmet, those needs feeling unmet, and that person that's feeling really hurt in that moment. If you think about him or her or them as a smaller version of you, a childlike version of you, a child version of you, that is exactly what is happening. There's a child version of you that's having this experience. I always sort of say you can't push the shiitake button unless I have it on me, right?
Yes.
So we talk about, can I say the JERK word?
Yeah.
online. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So my husband has a jerk button. So whenever someone calls him a jerk, he's like, "Oh, I can't believe it," and he's triggered. And I'm like, why? I wonder. I'm so curious. Where in your life did you hear that word that it now means something that's so bad? Because if I call him
Whatever.
anything else,
Anything.
he nothing, unfazed, right? Can call him the worst words, unfazed. I don't call him, but if he's done that, but the J word comes out and it's like, oh my God, the end of the world.
Yes. Yeah.
And as I started to dig deeper, his dad used to call people that he absolutely hates jerks. And so his a younger self,
Ooh,
right?
yeah.
That now
Yes.
feels like this is a wound that's deep. So it's the same thing. And you can replace it with your own words. You can replace
Yep.
it with your own emotional wounds at abandonment, or when people look away or they don't hear purposely, or example is they don't hear you, but you think they're not purposely hearing you, or they see
Yes.
you, but they don't actually see you because you're in a group, and people take that so personally. There's a wounded inner self that is actually
Right there,
happening.
guys. She just talked to us about a superpower tip. That's the awareness, right? We have to be in that state of awareness. Again, going back to the top of the hour when we were talking about, what were we talking? What was I talking about?
Unmet needs.
Unmet needs. Yeah, unmet
I got
needs.
you.
Right. Thank you. Really staying in that heightened awareness of what's coming up, the trigger. Oh, my ex was famous about you're triggering me, you're triggering me, you're triggering me. And I'm like,
Let's heal that inner child then that's being triggered,
yeah,
right?
well, that's
Yeah,
why
you
he's
do
the
that.
ex.
Yeah.
You go ahead and do that. He had no interest in doing that. So, yeah. And that's a really important conversation. And what you were talking about, Sheetal, is the awareness and that trigger. You, the person that's being triggered, you've got the sticky stuff in you. Nobody else had that on you, the
That's
jerk
right.
comment, anything
Yep.
like that. I could say popcorn, and that brought you back to a state fair and you saw somebody fly off the wheel. I don't know. There's something within you that you created that experience, right? So it's you that's having that trigger. And that conversation between the two humans and being able to hold space and have that conversation is really vital, important. Going back to what you were talking about at the top of the hour about not enabling, holding space, having a compassionate curiosity conversation, right? And I think also, Chital, is also where I come in, and what I talk about is finding that boundary within yourself that says, okay, is this conversation and this person important to me? Not saying enough to me, but like, if it's a complete stranger, and do you want to expel your energy on that? Or do you just want to say, all right, love and blessings, and move on? Or is this a loved one, a child, a coworker, a husband, a wife that you really want to investigate? I used my words very carefully. Investigate and see what's going on with that conversation. I think there's a huge boundary and conversation around that, because again, it's the empathy. I'm going to just go in and I'm going to heal everything. I'm going to jump in and heal everything and feel it, when you don't have to. You can put up that boundary. I kind of rambled off, didn't I?
No, I agree. Like,
But
I think that when you're triggered in the moment, understanding that it's not the issue that's happening. I mean, there's some real life world events and things that are happening now
happening.
that are
Yeah.
really awful,
Yeah.
and that is warranted and valid, and your experience there is absolutely valid. And we're talking about really awful things that are happening in the world. And your experience with that thing is then going to bring you dysregulation. So in the
Yes.
face of real like social change, can you do it from a regulated place versus a place of like, I need to tear everybody and everything down because this anger is consuming me? You can be
Yes.
passionate without being angry about it and having to go and kind of do something in the world. So let love and compassion be your guide. Like when we look at Martin Luther King, it was love that enabled him to do what he needed to do, right? It wasn't him being like, let's chop everybody. It was love that pushed him out into the world to make social change happen. So the more we come into that regulation, the more we then can have change happen from a place where we're all now working in a power of love to make this happen from a regulated place.
Sheetal, you know what's coming up for me, and I think the audience needs to hear this and be reminded of this. And I'm going to use a short example. When my daughters were growing up, we would hear the egg cars. And more times than not, in humans, that's a trauma response. They're like, they go into this, oh my God, you know, that kind of thing. And I taught my girls, no, love and blessing, love and blessing. Send that energy, send the energy of love and blessing to them.
I don't
Now,
know
the
what
reason,
ACARs are. What is
what was
ACARs?
that?
What is, I don't know that from Canada.
Aid cars, emergency vehicles, like aid cars going to an
Oh, like
accident,
police and
like the
ambulance and things
police,
like that?
ambulance, and stuff
Okay.
like that. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. If you hear them or see them coming by, usually there's a trauma response happening, right?
Right.
I don't want that energy in my body. I don't want that energy in their bodies. And I'm saying this to the audience because it's a great example for us in the conversation that we're having today. You have to be in that state of awareness and stop the old trigger, right? Breathe. In that moment, take your power and choose love. Choose love and trust. Choose love and trust right there. You are
Choose
magic.
introspection, choose curiosity. Why is this bringing this up for me? What happened before that a siren? And then let that come to mind. Your soul will bring to you what is no longer congruent with who you are now. Because as you
Right.
grow and become more healed and more illuminated, you'll start to see that some of these old patterns will come back to the surface for you to see it in a different way. So oftentimes I hear from clients and from friends, they're like, I thought I dealt with this already. I thought I've done this
Yes.
already. And I'm like, yes,
Yes.
you have. And now, as you're evolving, spiraling upward in your healing, you're now seeing this with new eyes. It's still there in the fabric of your soul, and you get to heal it in a new perspective from a new vantage point.
A new iteration, what is it?
Iteration.
And, you know, and when we talk about expansion, it's not bigger, better, greater. It's just an expansion of energy. It's not that you're any better or greater than anybody. It's just an expansion of energy and how
Right.
you, the human, are choosing to show up. That's all that at least I'm speaking about. And Chantal's nodding her head
I
for
agree.
those in the radio world.
It's
Yes,
not better
yes.
or worse or more healed. I mean, that's the brain again, liking to judge and
Yes.
say, I'm more
Yes.
healed than you. And I'm, no,
No,
you be your
no.
own guru, right? Please don't put anyone,
Yes.
including us, on a pedestal.
Oh,
Like,
heavens, no.
we're
Oh
on
my
our own journey
gosh,
too.
no. That's, that's another premise of why, and my promise to my audience is, providing guests and tips and tools for unwavering self-love,
Yes.
right? And that rock star resilience. Us providing a platform and say, take what resonates and leave the rest. And I would like to be that squeaky wheel, because if something did trigger you or something did come up in this conversation, good, because I want you to investigate it. I want you to lean into it. And we gave you a lot of great, powerful tools to help regulate. Number one is the breath, right?
That's right.
Yes. 4 in, 7 out.
There's also another tool that I love using with my clients, and it's called catch, cancel, and reframe. So you catch the thought, you cancel it right there, right? So you catch yourself beating yourself up. I should have taken that turn. I shouldn't have talked to that guy. I shouldn't have said that. And you're like, no, I'm catching that. I'm canceling it, and I'm reframing that. I've learned a wonderful lesson that I will share as I feel is appropriate for me. Or this is a great lesson to trust my intuition. So in the next time, I'll just take the different turn, or I'll take another turn to work.
Yes.
Right? Like that compassionate curiosity is coming back in the reframe of the statement.
Yes.
So catch, cancel, and reframe, a great
Yes.
tool to use.
Absolutely. I love it, love it, love it. And of course, the CCs in life, the audience have heard me say that for a few years. It's the CCs in life. Have compassionate curiosity. Take that deep breath the moment that happens, instead of going into the old habituated pattern. You've got to be in awareness that you're having a chemical release, right? Air quotes for the radio world, that you are having that chemical release. Like you hear an emergency vehicle go by and you immediately go, oh my God, nope, stop. Reframe, release, and put something in there. Yes, put something.
And send love to the person in the ambulance. Send love to the person on the other side. That's going to help.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, the whole basis of me telling you that was that you framed it and chunked it out, because I've been doing it so long. It's not even the chunks anymore to me. It's just, I don't even do that sticky stuff. I just immediately go blessings, especially with the society of the world. And when we were in the heat of COVID, I had so many clients. What do I do? What do I do when I've got all this COVID sticky stuff? And I said, love, send love, feel your emotions, obviously, but don't let them stick on you. Don't let the other people's fears affect your life and lifestyle either. Just love, just love. And when you say just love, I mean, it seems so simplistic in the words, but it is very powerful to do and to feel. You've really got to feel like you feel gratitude, you feel appreciation, right?
And again, to add one more layer to that is that when you're feeling the fear, what's the fear about? What part of you is scared? Right?
Oh,
It's
yes.
Richard Schwartz is the gentleman who pioneered IFS, which is called interfamily systems. And IFS theorizes that we have different parts of us that play different roles in our lives. So we have the capital S self, right? That's that's our soul self. But then we've got the firefighter, right? That's gonna fight. No, just love on everything. I love your firefighter. But then there's the manager. We got stuff to do. We can't be scared. We got to take care of things, right? We have all these different parts of us that are acting in roles, but there's a younger version of us that is scared in that moment. And instead of locking that part of us in the closet and going, no, we can't talk to you, why are we scared? Right? Leaning into that, what's scared? So even with the beginning of COVID, it's a great example. There was so much fear perpetrated as a way to try to control, and we didn't know, there's a lot of mystery. And when we're in mystery, our brain likes to create situations that then kind of fill in the gaps that are obviously always fearful, right? It's never loving. And so when we had that, like, I remember I have asthma. And so they were talking, if you have any core morbidities, you will be dead. Like, that's it. You're dead, right? Your chances of, so I'm like, oh my God, I never get. And then I got it. And I was like, okay, I have a choice in this moment. I can, rise into healing, or I can be feeling like the victim. And that's when so I called a couple of my girlfriends. I'm like, this is happening. And I feel so shameful. I gave it to my daughter. Like, it was awful. And in that moment, I felt like I wasn't being very responsible, because I was taught as a child, I am super responsible. I raised my brother. I'm the responsible one. And here I was being not responsible, because I went to a retreat and got this thing back then and then gave it to a bunch of people. And it was just like, how can I do? I felt so ashamed. And that's when I had the friend say, okay, Sheetal, this is awful. And why'd you think this happened? Because I was one of the first people that got it. And so we started to find meaning in the experience that was very positive. And then there was gratitude, because it wasn't that bad. We got it early. We now have like antibodies-ish, we didn't really know what it meant back then. And it could then be the example of like, hey, it's not that bad. And it's also really weird, right? Like, I had like no smell for 3 months and all the things. And I got to share that. And as people started to see that it was real, we started to see kind of some things happen. So it was really interesting in that moment to lean in and kind of go, okay, what's the sadness about? What's the fear about? Right? Giving it some space with love, not with enabling, as you mentioned, with love, right? Why are you scared? Why are you sad? What's happening here with
Don't go
COVID?
down that rabbit hole, right? Don't
But
go down the rabbit hole.
go down with the understanding and the intention to bring light, right? To bring it back up to
But
the
you know
light.
what I mean? We got to make sure the audience knows, don't go down that rabbit hole of shame and guilt. Exactly what you were talking about. I just wanted to put a pin in that. Go ahead, Sheetal.
Absolutely. Yes, you're so right. And like, we inherently, and this is something I learned through my grief counseling, is we inherently like to bring light to things. So you'll hear people go, it was really awful what happened to him, but he's in a better place. You'll hear that. I never say, please don't say that to anyone who's grieving, they're in a better place. But sometimes they'll say, or, his suffering is over now, at least that's happening. And so you'll see
their
that,
intention is good.
I mean, like, they're trying to find a light, right? They're trying to come, from the down and under to the up and out. And so we inherently find that we want to be back in regulation. But I'm just saying that not to lock that part of you that feels sad or scared away, but can you give it space in a loving capacity to then bring words to how are they feeling? What happened in life that created this? And how can we now nourish and love on that younger self, that never is a wound anymore? So that if someone calls you a jerk, it's not a big deal, right? And it's interesting because now it's not a trigger. As soon as I said, oh, and isn't that interesting that your dad had this thing? And so you must have heard him say that as a kid. And that must have been like, oh, I never want to be that. He's like, I guess you're right. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. And now he hears the
shined a light on it. You hear people say, shine a light on the dark, and it can't live there, right?
That's right.
Can't. Yeah, it just can't live there. So let's recoup. We've got just a few more minutes. Everything. I mean, we've talked about so many things, and I want to make sure that the audience I'm serious. We could keep going on, on and on, and because I love this conversation.
I love it too.
I just do. And thank you. And thank you to Source that brought us full circle and on the luckiest day of the
I'm
year, which is
lucky.
absolutely brilliant, beautiful. I mean, come
I
on.
love it.
That's amazing. So we talked about the top of the hour. We talked about unmet needs. We talked about how to stay in awareness. It is that inside job. It's what are you complaining about? And sarcasm. Sarcasm plays a big part of that when you're not getting your needs met. It's that the icky, sticky stuff of sarcasm and not getting your needs met. And if you are in a trigger response, a trauma response, breath is going to be your number one advocate. You have to be aware that you're not aware. That's really important.
Right.
You have to be aware you're not aware because you are in a habituation. You are in already a habit, a habituation that you have programmed, and it's been a safety net. Your nervous system has done an absolutely fabulous job of keeping you safe. However, my loves, it's not serving you anymore. It is absolutely not serving you anymore. And if you want your life to change, you have to change. Right?
And if you don't catch it in the moment, you'll definitely catch it afterwards because you're going to be like, oh my God, I don't know. I can't believe I said that. And oh, I just did it again. And you're like, and that's dysregulation.
That's
so
it.
you're going to catch it.
Yes. And you can catch it. You can go, oh, I could have showed up better. I'm going to change that. And you're going to put a practice in place and you're going to have a conversation with yourself and you're going to change the language, the frequency, the energy, the love. You're going to change all of that. And you're also going to release whatever that thing, the sticky balls. It's like, those little sticky Velcro things that you have, I'm so tactile. It's like, no, I don't want that on me. Get it off, get it off. For the radio world, I'm like flicking little, I'm flicking little styrofoam balls. Anyways, there's a joke in there somewhere. Somebody's laughing at me and that's so okay. Swinging back around. Sheetal, how do people get a hold of you? How can they work with you? How can we have more conversations with you?
Oh my goodness. I love this conversation. I love all things intuition, all things grief, all things spiritual healing. You can find me I'm always on Instagram under my name, Sheetal Story, SheeTal Story, STORY, or on Facebook as well. A Story of Spirit is my name on Facebook. I tried to change it to Sheetal Story, but they wouldn't let me. Or you can go to my website at sheetalstory.com, sign up for my newsletter, and get weekly astro insights and any updates on what's happening for me.
I've got to read this card, but I'm going to remind everybody how you spell your name. It's WWS. It's like a sheet. Yep. So SHEETAL story.com.
And no E in story. It's been my plight since I married into that name.
Really? What's
people like to put an extra E. STOREY. And I'm like, no, what? There's no E. It's just book.
Story. STORY. Okay, no. STORY. That's it. I'll make sure we'll get something on Facebook or Instagram because I'm over there too. Okay. We have got to read this card that I had pulled this morning. You ready, love?
I'm ready.
And it's from Postcards from Spirit. This one's Colette Barron reads, but we have Carmel Joe Bear too. But dearest you, we are sending you waves of love and joy as we watch you reap the rewards of your tenacity and faith. We know how long it has taken for you to reach some of your goals and that you have had disappointments along the way. Right now, we suggest that you take a deep breath and fill yourself up with gratitude and tune into the vibration of well-being. Temporary conditions may be trying to hypnotize you into seeing something else as your reality, but we know that happy rewards are on their way to you even now. Change is the only constant. Be open to it. You will achieve your dreams and more, we promise. But more important, your happy rewards will be gathered up in the small moments, the gentle breezes, the soft kisses, and the quiet commitments. Your happiness or your happiest moments will be on the journey itself, not arriving at the destination. You are surrounded by so much love and care. Can you feel us? It almost brought me to tears.
Perfect.
Isn't that perfect? With that, I love you guys. Thank you so much, Sheetal. Hang on just a moment. I'm going to end up the show. We'll see you guys next week. And until then, each of you are a gift. Get out there and share yourself with the world.